Well, I wonder if you're happy today. I wonder if you have a deep joy in your life that crosses over the circumstances, which we know life is hard sometimes, but I wonder if you have a deep joy that's rooted in faithfulness to Christ today. We look at Psalm 126, and it's an ascent psalm. I've been working through the ascent psalms, these psalms that guide us in our spiritual journeys with Christ and towards Christ and his new heaven and new earth. And as we think about this psalm, I love what Eugene Peterson says is the result of a faithful walk with Christ. Not perfectly, but it certainly is something that becomes a theme in our lives. He says this: joy is not a requirement of Christian discipleship. It is a consequence. It's not what we have to acquire in order to experience life in Christ. It's what comes to us when we are walking the way of faith and obedience. And so remember the story of the people of Israel. They were rescued from Egypt. They were brought into the promised land. God made a covenant with them. He says, if you go my ways, it'll go well with you. You'll be blessed. And if you go against my ways, if you choose to be your own shepherds and call your own shots, then there'll be consequences. And so Israel, the people went the wrong direction, and eventually God allowed the consequences of their choices to take full root in their lives, and they were carried off into captivity. And they were carried off for 70 years to another land as slaves. And so this psalm rejoices and celebrates the moment when they are restored as they return. And then in the face of ongoing troubles is a prayer and a hope for the future that God will continue to restore. And so we understand it in that context, that as we follow Christ and as we live his way, joy becomes something that flows out of our obedience and walking with Christ. And two, that it comes at us and to us even in the midst of hard times. So listen to the psalm. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. So you just get a deep sense that they are remembering a time when they're restored and brought back to their own land, a land that most of the population had never experienced, blessings that they only heard about. And so they returned when they were restored, and it was like they were dreaming. It was beautiful. It was perfect. It was everything that they hoped for. It was so good that it was known around how good it was. It said, the psalm says this in verse 2: then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. And so it was understood all around that they were filled with laughter and joy. And then they say this present statement. So that was the past. Now they're talking about the present. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. Verse 4 moves us to this idea of joy is often in the midst of sorrow. And this is where we put our hope in Jesus Christ for the future as we move through hard times, as we walk through lives that are often full of pain and tragedy, and even by our own doing, we get into trouble and we experience consequences. And so here's their prayer in verse 4. Restore our fortunes, Lord, like streams in the Negev. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out with weeping, carrying seeds to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. And so there's this beautiful landing and this hope of the future that they will experience joy even in the midst of tears. There's something steady about joy that's different than happiness. There's something deep rooted as we follow Christ that's different than circumstantial happiness. That comes and goes, right? Life is hard. But there's something deep, and remember the pilgrimage idea that we are journeying towards Christ, and with Christ we are journeying towards the promises of joy and hope and really full restoration when he comes and makes all things new once and for all. And so in many ways it's bittersweet, but we grab a hold. We look forward to when all the beauty of joy comes in its fullness. So where do you find joy today, and how do you experience it? This psalm points us to the beauty of following God and the joy that comes with that. I hope you find joy today in the midst of sorrow and tears. I hope that you know Christ and walk with him. Hey, have a great day. We'll talk again.